Hollywood creates stars overnight and cancels them just as fast. Some were written off, dragged through scandal, mocked as finished. Yet against all odds, they came back, brighter, bolder, unforgettable. These are the LGBTQ+ icons who turned shame into power and controversy into legacy. Who do you think deserves the crown of true redemption? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to hit subscribe for the stories Hollywood tried to hide. Timothée Chalamet has the kind of beauty Hollywood doesn't quite know how to handle. Messy curls, hollow cheeks, sharp angles that feel carved out of marble. Too fragile for the cookie-cutter leading man mold, too striking to ever fade into the background. From the start, he looked less like an action hero and more like a French New Wave dream. Someone pulled straight from a painting and dropped into modern cinema. He wasn't supposed to be the future of Hollywood, and yet, that's exactly what he became. When he stepped into the role of Elio in Call Me By Your Name, everything changed. It wasn't just another indie performance, it was a revelation. The way he blushed, the way he trembled, the way he made First Love feel both magical and unbearable. Audiences didn't just see him, they felt him. Critics called it a performance beyond his years. Fans called it their awakening. Almost overnight, Timothée wasn't just an actor, he was the symbol of a new kind of masculinity. Soft, fluid, vulnerable, queer-coded. Hollywood crowned him its youngest prince, and the world swooned. But no crown comes without a curse. The backlash was immediate. Some praised him as a trailblazer, a fearless young man bringing queer stories into the mainstream. Others accused him of queerbaiting, exploiting LGBTQ+ narratives without ever declaring himself part of the community. The debate followed him everywhere. Was he honoring queer love or profiting from it? The whispers grew louder when his co-star Armie Hammer fell into one of the ugliest scandals of the decade. Suddenly, the very film that made Timothée a global star became a weapon critics used against him. He was young, fragile, and suddenly walking on Hollywood quicksand. For most actors, this would have been the end. Hollywood loves to build its idols only to watch them crumble. But Timothée didn't disappear, he transformed. Instead of chasing safe blockbusters or hiding behind PR spin, he dove headfirst into chaos. He chose roles that blurred the lines between identity and performance. In Beautiful Boy, he embodied the raw pain of addiction. In The King, he was a reluctant monarch torn between duty and doubt. In Dune, he carried one of the largest sci-fi epics of the decade, turning Paul Atreides into a haunted prophet instead of a cardboard hero. And then came Bones and All, a cannibal romance so bizarre that it could have destroyed his credibility. Instead, it proved he wasn't afraid of risk, he thrived in it. And if his films made him unpredictable, his fashion turned him untouchable. While other actors played it safe in black tuxedos, Timothée ripped the script apart. Sequined harnesses at the Oscars, a backless red carpet suit in Venice, pearls, silk, velvet, jewelry that blurred gender lines and shattered expectations. He didn't just wear clothes, he performed them. Vogue crowned him the face of a new era. Fans called him their gender-fluid king. To his critics, he was still an enigma. Not loud enough to claim an LGBTQ+ identity, not traditional enough to play by Hollywood's rules. But that refusal to conform, that gray area, was exactly what made him magnetic. For queer fans, he became more than an actor. He became a mirror, a reminder that you don't have to define yourself to matter. That ambiguity itself can be powerful. He never confirmed the rumors, never silenced them either. Instead, he leaned into the tension, letting the world project its hopes, fears, and fantasies onto him. In an industry obsessed with labels, Timothée made the lack of one his ultimate weapon. Today, Timothée Chalamet doesn't just stand as a young Oscar nominee. He stands as proof that in Hollywood, scandal doesn't always destroy, it can transform. That softness isn't weakness, that ambiguity can become art, that sometimes the prettiest boy in the room can also be the most dangerous. He turned cancellation into curiosity, curiosity into power, and power into an aura no one can quite pin down. Because in the end, Timothée's greatest role isn't Elio or Paul Atreides or even the cannibal in Bones and All. His greatest role is himself, the star who thrives on uncertainty, the boy who turned whispers into wildfire, the man who redefined what it means to be iconic in a generation that rejects boxes. So was he canceled? Maybe for a moment. But out of that fire came something Hollywood never saw coming. A star too fluid, too fearless, too fascinating to ever erase. Timothée Chalamet didn't just survive the storm, he became the storm. If Timothée Chalamet is the polished face of ambiguity turned into art, then Noah Centineo is a chaotic experiment that nearly collapsed before finding its rhythm. When he first appeared on Netflix's big screen in To All the Boys I've Loved Before, he wasn't just a character, he was a cultural phenomenon. With his wry smile, carefree laugh, and boy-next-door energy, he became the center of a generation's attention. The internet instantly embraced him. TikTok edits, Instagram fan pages, and Twitter posts made him a legend of Gen Z romance. But online fame is never easy. It explodes quickly and explodes even faster. Old tweets are dug up, awkward, immature, sometimes offensive, and every word becomes evidence against him. Interviews that once showcased his carefree, slightly eccentric charm quickly went viral for all the wrong reasons. His musings on love, energy, the universe became the stuff of jokes. Headlines about his relationships painted him as inconsistent, shallow, even manipulative. The halo of Netflix's golden boy began to fade, and for a moment, Noah Centineo seemed less like a rising star and more like another victim of Hollywood's cruel cycle. The industry had seen it before. The internet's boyfriend one year, forgotten the next. But Noah refused to succumb. Instead, he chose to reinvent himself. He shed his soft curls and teen idol image and recast himself as someone bolder, edgier, more unpredictable. He hit the gym, started grooming, and showed up in outfits that blurred gender lines. Layered pearls on tailored blazers, oversized suits, a dash of glam rock. Suddenly, the boy next door looked like he deserved a Vogue cover. The shift raised new questions. Was Noah queer code? Was he experimenting with identity? Or was it just strategy? He never clarified, and in that ambiguity, he became more alluring. For some, he was a reminder that masculinity can be fluid. For gay fans, he represented a fluid, if unspoken, but powerful presence in a Hollywood still clinging to rigid stereotypes. The very thing that once made him a meme is now a topic of conversation. Meanwhile, Noah has expanded his career beyond romantic comedies. He stepped into Black Adam, sharing the screen with Dwayne Johnson, proving he could hold his own in the blockbuster realm. He starred in The Recruit, a Netflix thriller that showed audiences he was more than just a charming smile. Independent projects gave him the freedom to express his talents, taking on darker, stranger, more dangerous roles. Gradually, the film industry stopped seeing him as a teen idol and began to see him as an unpredictable talent. What sets Noah apart is not perfection, but survival. He doesn't beg for forgiveness online, doesn't try to erase the past. He lets people talk. He lets the criticisms echo. And while the internet dissects his mistakes, he quietly transforms himself into a new person. That patience, that decision to let mystery guide him, is what turns him from a joke to an enigma. He's still the same actor who played the lovable romantic guy in romantic comedies, but he's also the man who struts down the Prada red carpet, flashing a dangerous smile. He's no longer a safe figure. He's become something harder to define, harder to ignore. So yes, Noah was canceled. He was mocked, laughed at, trashed. But by embracing chaos, refusing to back down, he built a second life. And now, As he shows up in power suits and pearls, as fans whisper about who he is or isn't, he's proof that even in Hollywood, being canceled can be a beginning, not an end. Noah Centineo was the internet's boyfriend gone rogue. But Robert Pattinson was the global obsession no one thought would survive. He was never meant to be an icon, just another teen fantasy, chewed up by hysteria and forgotten. Twilight turned him into a superstar overnight and almost destroyed him at the same time. With pale skin, a brooding stare, and tousled hair, Pattinson became Edward Cullen, the vampire who defined an entire generation. Fans screamed his name, his face covered magazines and posters, and for a moment, he was untouchable. But fame that massive carries a curse. Critics mocked his acting, calling him wooden, one-dimensional, famous only because of teenage girls. Interviews showed a young man uneasy with his own role. He called the movies weird, even joked about hating Edward, and the internet never let him forget it. The backlash was brutal. He wasn't just dismissed, he was ridiculed, canceled before cancel culture even had a name. Hollywood had decided Robert Pattinson was a joke. Then came the tabloids. His high-profile romance and messy breakup with Kristen Stewart played out as a global circus. Paparazzi chased him daily. Blogs painted him as either villain or victim, and the world seemed more interested in his heartbreak than his craft. For most young actors, that would have been the end. A pretty face chewed up by Hollywood, fading quietly into irrelevance. But Pattinson didn't fade. He ran in the opposite direction. Instead of clinging to blockbusters, he chased indies. Good Time, The Lighthouse, High Life, films that forced audiences to see him as more than Edward Cullen. He played criminals, addicts, loners, characters messy, fragile, impossible to box in. Slowly, critics who once mocked him admitted the truth. Pattinson could act. He wasn't just surviving, he was reinventing himself. As his career shifted, so did his image. Pattinson leaned into chaos, into absurd humor, and a fashion sense that mocked Hollywood's stiff masculinity. He walked red carpets in oversized Dior, silk shirts, fluid, mischievous fits that felt queer-coded. He never defined himself, never answered the whispers, and that became his strength. Like his roles, his identity stayed undefined, always just out of reach. For queer fans, that ambiguity was magnetic. In The Batman, casting him as Bruce Wayne triggered outrage, memes, petitions, endless scoffing at the Twilight guy. But he proved everyone wrong. His Batman wasn't the macho fantasy of old. He was haunted, vulnerable, gothic, more outsider than savior. The film's success sealed his comeback. Robert Pattinson wasn't a joke anymore. He was a force, an actor who had turned mockery into momentum, scandal into survival. What makes his story so powerful isn't just reinvention, it's defiance. Hollywood tried to cancel him, to box him in as a teen idol past his expiration date. Instead of begging for approval, he embraced the chaos, used rejection as freedom, and showed that survival comes from daring to be strange. His journey is resilience in action, a reminder that mockery doesn't have to end you, it can fuel you. For the LGBTQ+ community, for outsiders, for anyone told they were too weird or too different, Pattinson is proof that limits don't define destiny. You can stumble, be underestimated, even written off, and still rise higher, not as perfection, but as your unapologetic self. And that's why his story matters. It doesn't end with Batman or Dior, it ends with a challenge to Hollywood. Stop underestimating the ones you laugh at, because sometimes the stars you dismiss today become the icons you can't ignore tomorrow. Which brings us to another star, someone younger, someone who danced on the same knife's edge between cancellation and icon status. Jacob Elordi is arguably the perfect guy. With his 6'3" frame, sharp jawline, and deep eyes, he looks like he just stepped out of a Calvin Klein ad campaign. His breakout role came in Netflix's The Kissing Booth, a sweet teen romantic comedy that turned him into an overnight sensation. Posters of him covered bedroom walls. TikTok edits were multiplied millions of times, and gay fans whispered, "Is he just handsome, or is he hiding something else?" But fame comes with a shadow. Almost immediately, cracks began to appear in Jacob's pretty boy image. Rumors of his bad attitude on set spread. Paparazzi caught him in tumultuous breakups. Joey King, Zendaya, Olivia Jade. The list became tabloid fodder. Social media labeled him a player, a heartbreaker. And critics, in turn, dismissed him as just another pretty face, a superficial teen idol destined to fade away once the hype died down. For a moment, Jacob felt like he was about to be ruined before his career even began. And then euphoria came along. As Nate Jacobs, a violent, toxic quarterback, Jacob turned things around. He was no longer the perfect boyfriend. He was scary, alluring, inescapable. The stakes were high. Audiences might mistake the actor for the monster he portrayed. But instead of destroying him, the role saved him. Jacob proved he could act, not just act, but dominate the screen. Nate was queer-coded, unstable, full of repressed desire, and suddenly, queer fans couldn't stop talking. Was Jacob just acting, or was he revealing something deeper? But the scandals didn't stop. Interviews labeled him arrogant. His fleeting romances fed the tabloids more than his talent. Twitter posts labeled him toxic, troubled, destructive. But Jacob didn't fade. He improved. Saltburn came along. The 2023 thriller cemented his reputation as one of Hollywood's most daring young stars. His role was sexy, gay, and depraved, brimming with luxury and opulence. Suddenly, the guy from Netflix's romantic comedy was walking the Met Gala, appearing on the covers of GQ and Vogue, wearing couture by Bottega Veneta and Valentino. Hollywood tried to pigeonhole him, and he succeeded. What makes Jacob Elordi impossible to ignore isn't just his beauty. It's his tension. He's straddling the fine line between being loved and despised, between a serious leading man and a gay enigma. Fans debate endlessly. Is he the new Marlon Brando, transforming masculinity into something lithe and charismatic? Or is he simply lucky, riding the wave of controversy to stardom? Either way, Jacob has become a symbol of his generation. He's not the safe, polished teenage boy that Netflix Idol wanted to promote. He's chaotic, unpredictable, larger than life. The bad boy Hollywood couldn't control, and audiences couldn't resist. Jacob's story poses a tough question for us. Do we love him for the chaos or in spite of it? Leave a comment below if you think Jacob Elordi is destined to become Hollywood's next true icon. Zac Efron has never been able to escape the shadow of perfection. For a generation, he's been more than just an actor. He has been an icon. High School Musical christened him the Golden Boy. Perfect smile, perfect jawline, basketball star who could win any heart. With Vanessa Hudgens by his side, he became a teen Hollywood star. On posters, magazine covers, red carpets, everywhere, Zac was the face of a new generation. But nothing ages faster than a teen idol. As he grew older, the image that made him famous began to suffocate him. Critics dismissed him as shallow, a handsome face without impact. Casting directors labeled him safe, pretty boy. And as the internet grew ever more sophisticated, every slip-up, party rumors, rehab news, awkward interviews was used as evidence that Zac Efron was done. Hollywood whispered that he would never surpass Troy Bolton. What do you think? Was Zac doomed from the start? Let me know in the comments. But instead of clinging to the past, Zac smashed it. He embraced innovation. He chose roles that poked fun at his own image. A goofy guy in Neighbors, a frivolous lifeguard in Baywatch, characters that turned his physical appearance into satire and offered sharp comedic moments. Gradually, audiences began to realize Zac wasn't just surviving, he was evolving. However, with innovation comes volatility. The changes in his appearance, bigger, scruffier, sometimes unrecognizable, sparked endless speculation. Tabloids questioned everything from his surgery to his self-esteem. To many, it looked like another fallen idol crumbling under pressure. For Zac, it was motivation. Then the change came. In Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, he gave a chilling performance as Ted Bundy, shedding the pretension to demonstrate his versatility. In Down to Earth, he revealed a deeper, more grounded side, far removed from the Disney glitz. And on the red carpet, his style grew bolder. Loose tailoring, jewels, curves that blurred traditional masculinity. He never labeled himself, never explained the gossip, but the ambiguity was more than words. If you think Zac's style evolution deserves more recognition, give this video a like. It will help the channel grow. For queer fans, Zac's journey has become fascinating not because of his statements, but because of his evolution. The dream boyfriend of the 2000s has now embraced his complexity, his vulnerability, and his freedom from stereotypes. He is no longer bound by the fantasies that once defined him. What makes Zac iconic is not a single comeback. It's his perseverance. He has stumbled in public, been ridiculed, underestimated, even written off, but he never disappeared. He chose to take risks, grow, and allow himself to be free in front of an audience that once demanded perfection. It's that resilience, the courage to be doubted and still move forward, that makes him so compelling. Zac Efron's story is proof that cancellation isn't the end. Hollywood tried to freeze him forever as Troy Bolton, but he broke the mold. He showed that masculinity doesn't have to be rigid, and that scars can be part of survival. Today, he's not just a former teen idol, but also an icon of reinvention. The boy who wasn't supposed to last, becoming the man who never died. And if you want to hear more stories about stars who rose from cancellation to icon, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. Hedges was never destined to be a Hollywood blockbuster. From the start, he forged a different path, a beloved indie star, an actor's actor, a gentle man who could turn raw vulnerability into pure art. With breakthrough roles in Manchester by the Sea, Lady Bird, and Boy Erased, Lucas became one of the most promising young talents of his generation. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, he was subtle, emotional, unforgettable. But subtlety doesn't protect you from scandal. As Lucas's fame grew, questions about his sexuality began to surface. Fans noticed the queer-coded characters he chose, the way he embraced gentle masculinity. Was he queer? Was he straight? Was he simply cashing in on roles meant for gay actors? In 2018, he finally addressed the speculation, saying he wasn't entirely straight. Instead of quelling the rumors, the announcement unleashed a wave of backlash. The backlash was fierce. Some accused him of queer-baiting, using ambiguity to make himself more marketable, without fully committing to the queer community. Others saw his statements as brave, a pushback against Hollywood's obsession with rigid labels. Lucas suddenly found himself caught in the middle of a culture war. Too gay for some, not gay enough for others. For a young star, such scrutiny could have been career-ending. Hollywood is ruthless with actors who confuse audiences. But Lucas didn't chase the noise. Instead, he focused on his craft. He chose roles that pushed boundaries, portraying gay characters with authenticity and depth. In Boy Erased, he portrayed the pain of gender reassignment therapy with haunting realism, proving that his acting was about empathy, not exploitation. Gradually, the industry changed. Directors praised him as a fearless young actor who wasn't afraid to push boundaries. Fashion houses quickly took notice. Prada, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Lucas was invited, dressed, photographed. On the red carpet, he wasn't the loudest, but he was always the most attractive. His quiet beauty and ethereal charisma made him a favorite of Vogue photographers. The same qualities that once caused a backlash now make him appealing. Today, Lucas Hedges is one of Hollywood's most unique young stars. He hasn't been forced into easy boxes. He hasn't pursued box office domination. Instead, he's built a reputation as a beloved, though criticized, indie star. An actor who turns criticism into motivation and scandal into curiosity. His willingness to live in the gray areas of his identity has made him not just a must-see actor, but a cultural icon for a generation that doesn't accept stereotypes. Lucas's story reminds us that cancellation doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes it means reinvention. By refusing to conform, he's transformed himself from a target of criticism into a symbol of authenticity. The real question now is, did Lucas Hedges simply survive the Hollywood disaster, or was he stronger for it? Leave 3 comments if you think his best performances are still ahead, and tell me, where are you watching the movie right now? Darren Criss was never supposed to become a global idol. When he first stepped onto the stage of Glee as Blaine Anderson, the charming, bow-tie-wearing crooner who stole Kurt's heart, he didn't just sing, he lit a fire. Fans across the world fell head over heels for his boyish smile, his voice that could melt glass, and the way he embodied queer love on primetime television. For many, Darren became their very first gay crush on TV. He wasn't just acting, he was a symbol of visibility, a reminder that love between 2 men could be just as dreamy, just as magical as the Hollywood romances that dominated the big screen. But with the spotlight came a shadow. Darren wasn't gay, and soon the very role that launched him into stardom turned against him. Critics accused him of queerbaiting. Social media asked why a straight man should profit from queer roles, while openly gay actors struggled just to find work. Darren, once hailed as a hero, suddenly became a lightning rod for controversy. He was canceled, if only lightly, but the sting was real. For a time, it seemed like he might never escape Blaine's shadow. Casting directors didn't know what to do with him. Too tied to Glee, too controversial for some queer fans, too unconventional for Hollywood's rigid standards of masculinity. He drifted in a dangerous limbo, famous, but stuck. And then came the role that changed everything. Andrew Cunanan in The Assassination of Gianni Versace. The true crime drama forced Darren to dig deeper than ever before. He transformed himself into a chilling, magnetic villain, a queer murderer whose charm was as deadly as his violence. It was a massive risk. Taking on another queer role, after already being accused of exploiting them, could have ended his career completely. But instead, it elevated him. Darren's performance was nothing short of electric. He was seductive, terrifying, impossible to look away from. Critics hailed it as the performance of a lifetime. And Hollywood responded. He didn't just earn praise, he won everything. An Emmy, a Golden Globe, a Critics' Choice Award. Suddenly, the same actor accused of stealing from the queer community became the one reminding Hollywood just how powerful queer stories could be when told with artistry and respect. From there, Darren reinvented himself. No longer the Glee guy, he became a Broadway powerhouse, a red carpet regular at the Met Gala, a face in Vogue. He embraced flamboyance, camp, and luxury fashion. Sequin jackets, velvet suits, gender-bending styles that demanded attention on every carpet. Darren leaned into the very queer-coded aesthetic that once got him in trouble. But this time, he owned it. He didn't apologize for his choices, he celebrated them. And that's why Darren's story forces us to ask, do we judge actors for the roles they take, or do we honor the art they create? Maybe the answer is complicated, but one thing is clear. Darren Criss turned what could have been a career-ending controversy into a reinvention. He proved that sometimes the fire meant to burn you down can be the very thing that lights your way forward. Drop a 1 in the comments if you think Darren truly earned his place as an icon. Ben Hardy has the kind of face Hollywood simply can't resist. Angelic features, piercing blue eyes, and a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. When he first stepped onto the screen as Roger Taylor in Bohemian Rhapsody, audiences gasped. He wasn't just playing a rock legend, he looked like he had walked straight out of a vintage Rolling Stone photo shoot. Overnight, Ben became one of Britain's most talked about rising stars. But behind the red carpet smiles, drama was brewing. His name started to swirl in scandal. Whispers about a casting couch story, gossip that painted him as nothing more than a Hollywood boy toy. He was accused of sleeping his way into roles, of being just another pretty face without depth. And then came the rumors about his love life. Paparazzi photos, blind items, quiet whispers linking him to men as well as women. Queer fans leaned in. Was Ben Hardy bisexual? Or was it just another tabloid fantasy? For a while, those headlines threatened to overshadow everything. Casting directors hesitated. The industry loves a bad boy, but it fears a scandal. Ben's career slowed, and for a moment it seemed like he might fade into the pile of forgotten pretty faces that Hollywood burns through so easily. But Ben wasn't finished. He pivoted. Instead of chasing blockbuster fame, he threw himself into indie films and prestige TV. Slowly, he began to shed the tabloid toy image and prove himself as a serious actor. His performances grew sharper, his roles darker, his presence magnetic, and Hollywood started to notice. Soon, Ben was walking red carpets again, not as the boy toy, but as the star. Fashion houses came calling. Burberry, Dior, Saint Laurent. He became a fixture at Fashion Week, draped in luxury, photographed by Vogue, celebrated as one of the fresh faces of modern British cinema. The same media that once mocked him for scandal now couldn't stop putting him on their covers. What makes Ben Hardy's story so iconic isn't just the comeback. It's the transformation. He went from being dismissed as disposable eye candy to standing tall as a global talent. The scandals that once defined him now only add to his allure. Because in Hollywood, a little danger is currency. A little rumor makes you unforgettable. And for queer fans, Ben remains one of the most fascinating enigmas of his generation. He's never labeled himself, never denied or confirmed the whispers. Instead, he leans into the ambiguity, letting his image float between straight heartthrob and queer-coded icon. That mystery, paired with undeniable talent, keeps audiences hooked. Today, Ben Hardy no longer stands as the scandalous boy toy of yesterday. He stands as a man who took control of his own story. Proof that you can't cancel someone who refuses to fade. The real question is, has Ben Hardy finally escaped the scandals of his past? Or have they become the very reason we can't look away? Drop A in the comments if you think Ben's best and most iconic chapter is still ahead. From canceled tweets to ruined reputations, from whispers of scandal to dazzling red carpets, these 10 stars prove an undeniable truth. Hollywood rewards innovation, not perfection. Each of them faced the sting of backlash, the ruthlessness of headlines, and the shadow of doubt. Some were ridiculed, others were written off completely, yet they refused to fade away. They turned rejection into fire, ridicule into power, and controversy into legacy. Because in the end, being canceled isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's the spark that propels a star to soar higher than anyone thought possible. These journeys remind us that resilience, vulnerability, and the courage to be true to who we are what truly make icons. Whose comeback inspired you the most? Whose transformation do you think shaped this generation? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe, because the next untold Hollywood story, the next scandal, the next redemption, the next icon is just around the corner.